welcome the cast and crew of Batman the Animated Series. Come on in, folks. We have here Mr. Kevin Altieri. He was the first director hired for the show, director of many classic episodes, including on Leather Wings, the first episode, and he's the guy who gave Harley Quinn her pigtails. Next we have Ms. Diane Pershing, the voice of Poison Ivy. Our next guest, you've seen him play the abusive father of many a person in the DC universe, and he's also the Riddler, Mr. John Glover. And next we have Robin and Nightwing, Mr. Loren Lester. And this fellow at the end, I think I'm going to have him introduce himself.
How am I going to do that?
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Kevin Conroy! And last but not least, we have the great Andrea Romano. She is the voice director of Batman the Animated Series. She's the person who cast all these people and directed them in the recording of the show. And we've got a special treat for you at the beginning of the show. We're going to give you a little insight. Bro, can we close that door?
Got it.
We're going to give you a little insight into how the show was done. We can sit now. We can sit. We have scripts for all of you of a Batman scene.
Thank you.
And what Andrea is going to do, she is going to direct a scene featuring the actors today. But we have two parts. We have a part for Batman, we have a part for Robin, but there are two parts that are kind of up in the air. And Andrea is going to do an impromptu casting session.
Andrea.
Oh, good Lord. How am I that stupid?
Andrea, right? So this is a scene that actually is kind of making its way around the internet a bit, based on the Adam West Batman series, but we're going to make it our own. We have in it Robin, of course, Loren. We have Batman and Bruce Wayne, Kevin. But we didn't have any lines for either Poison Ivy nor for the Riddler, so I thought it would be fun for you guys to audition for Commissioner Gordon and O'Hara. Now, O'Hara is Irish cop. So if you two would please go to line 17.
Yes.
And open your scripts up. See, these are stapled, and of course we don't use stapled scripts in a recording studio because the pages could flip and make noise on mic. So if you want to rip the pages, you're welcome to do so. Because I want you to go from 17 to 22. And John, why don't you do Gordon first?
All right.
And Diane, if you do O'Hara first, yes, thank you. And we're just going to reverse it. So it begins with Gordon speaking to his secretary over the intercom. Okay. Please.
That would be you.
You're Gordon first.
Oh, we're doing this now?
Yeah, we're auditioning by using the scene.
Okay.
Yeah? Don't be scared.
This is scary now.
Don't be scared. It's all good.
Boy,
You've done this before.
now. Oh, God.
No pressure.
All right, no pressure, right. Okay, Bonnie.
Yeah.
The next time you send in an unannounced visitor, you better send a tank of water and some live fish along with him.
Oh, but this was attached to one of its slippers. Suffering icicles. It's a list of demands from Mr. Freeze. He's holding Professor Isaacson for ransom.
What? At midnight, tonight, millionaire, Bruce Wayne, head of the Wayne Foundation, is to make a televised broadcast. I don't have my glasses on, honey.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What?
Okay,
that the money is ready to be paid. Yeah.
But he'll only deal directly with Batman and Robin. They're to be ready at midnight to act as intermediaries. Otherwise,
Ready at midnight to act. It actually
yes,
is.
Yes, two.
Exactly.
Yes.
Good. That's good. We're just going to go that far. Go back, please, you guys, to 17 again and switch roles. So Diane, you take Gordon, John, take O'Hara.
Okay.
Okay? Irish accented, right?
That's my all-purpose.
Diane, you start us off.
Bonnie, the next time you send in an unannounced visitor, you better send a tank of water and some live fish along.
Commissioner Gordon can be a woman. So you don't have to gruff it quite as much? You kind of
I
like,
was showing off.
You can do that. You can do that. I like the idea that she would be aggressive and tough. It just sounded like a little bit too forced.
So sort of like Judi Dench's
In other words, you want this more natural.
Indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie, the next time you send in an unannounced visitor, you'd better send a tank of water and some live fish along with them.
But this was attached to one of its flippers. Suffering icicles. It's a list of demands from Mr. Freeze. He's holding Professor Isaacson for ransom.
At midnight tonight, millionaire Bruce Wayne, head of the Wayne Foundation, is to make a televised broadcast
From this office.
that the money is ready to be paid.
He'll only deal directly with Batman and Robin. They're to be ready at midnight, too, to act as intermediaries. Otherwise...
Good, just go that far. Good. I'm thinking that's the way to go. What do you think, you guys? That casting?
You got
There's one more thing that I have to audition, though, you guys.
But now we have negotiations.
I'll have my girl call you.
This is the fun part.
There's a character in this that's not indicated in the script. I'm going to tell you where the lines are. There's a seal, an actual creature, the seal, right? Correct. So I want you all, yes? We're going to do that. Do you want to try, Kevin?
Me?
Yeah. Do you want to?
Seal?
Yeah. Bark like a seal.
Come on, ball up.
Come on, man up, Kevin. You can do a seal.
He's red as a beef now.
Thank you.
Oh, very good.
Brilliant.
That is good.
Diane?
Oh, I should
Yeah,
already...
I want everybody to try it. John? Okay. Nice. And Kevin? I think Kevin Altieri should do it.
Yes.
I'll tell you where they are. Okay. So what we're going to do, you guys, is we're going to rehearse this just as we would do in a recording session.
This
I'm
is
going to try
cool.
not to trip on this. So I'll read the stage directions, you guys, and feel free to ask questions as we go along. We are in the inside the Batcave. Batman and Robin are hard at work trying to figure out what Mr. Freeze wanted. The Batcomputer dings and spits out a passenger list of the ship, the Gotham Queen. Robin says,
Here's the passengers on C deck. All members of a Fireplace Equipment Dealers Tour.
Unlikely cohorts of Mr. Freeze.
What about this? Suite A boat deck, Colin Caldwell.
good. And take it Coldwell. Maybe take a second guess, because Mr. Freeze and Coldwell. Yes,
Okay.
good. Again on three.
Yeah, I'm reading this cold. What about this? Suite A boat deck, Colin Coldwell.
An appropriate name. But Mr. Coldwell is president of the Coldwell Furnace Company, and scarcely a suspect.
Emma Strunk.
What was that?
Are you deaf? Emma Strunk. Nothing there.
Just a second, Robin. Emma Strunk, I believe, was born Emma Strunk, and later changed her name to Glacia Glaze.
The world-renowned skating queen.
No doubt she booked passage under the name of Emma Strunk in order to avoid publicity. Once on board, of course, she would have been recognized. I have a strange feeling
That Glacia Glaze was Mr. Freeze's accomplice on the Gotham Queen. But what about a talented, beautiful, famous star like Glacia Glaze see? But what would a talented, beautiful, famous star like Glacia Glaze see in frostbitten Freeze?
the famous Rabelais would already answer that for you, Robin. With his great wit, to each his own, as the woman said when she kissed her cow. This could be just the break we and Bruce Wayne are looking for.
Bruce Wayne.
Miss Glaze is opening in a new ice revenue tonight at
No,
Bruce.
not a revenue.
A nice,
I mean,
an ice.
A nice revenue. Or
Miss
ice.
You see where
Glaze
his
is
head
opening
is.
in a new ice review tonight at the Bruce Wayne Ice Arena. In fact, Mr. Wayne is taking Mrs. Harriet Cooper, a devotee of Miss Glaze's, backstage before the performance to meet the dazzling star.
Well, Dick Grayson, I suppose, stays home and works on his essay on glaciers.
Right again, Robin.
And Robin sighs. See that over there, 16A? That's it. We cut to Commissioner Gordon's office. A large seal is barking in the background. So 16A, go Kevin. Nice, nice. Gordon is speaking on the intercom to his secretary, Bonnie, as he says at 17.
Bonnie,
As she
the
said.
next time you send in an unannounced visitor, you'd better send a tank of water and some live fish along with them.
But this was attached to one of its flippers. Suffering icicles. It's a list of demands for Mr. Freeze. He's holding Professor Isaacson for ransom.
And they read this list back and forth. They alternate. Gordon first.
At midnight tonight, millionaire Bruce Wayne, head of the Wayne Foundation, is to make a televised broadcast
From his office,
that the money is ready to be paid.
he'll only deal directly with Batman and Robin. They're to be ready at midnight to
Yes.
Yes, yes, to act. That's where you fucked up.
Language.
Yes, I didn't mean it. It slipped out. Yes. Otherwise. No, it's all right. He'll only deal directly with Batman and Robin. They're to be ready at midnight to act as intermediaries.
Otherwise, it may be the blackest midnight that Gotham City has ever known, Chief O'Hara. I'll call. Who's Chief O'Hara? Oh, he is.
Yeah.
I thought he was Bonnie.
Are you
No,
sure?
Bonnie is the secretary you talked to.
Oh,
Just-
Are you sure you cast this correctly?
Okay,
Yep.
I'll call Batman on the red phone. You get Mr. Wayne on the other.
Right.
So we know we're back at Wayne Manor, and we see Bruce Wayne picking up the ringing bat phone. So this is the voice of Batman.
Yes, Commissioner. Mr. Freeze wants what?
Telephone for Wayne Manor rings. Dick answers that and says,
Hello? I'll see if I can get him, Chief O'Hara.
and make a little bit more of a point of telling him who's on the phone.
Oh,
Chief
yeah,
O'Hara.
okay.
Good move.
Hello? I'll see if I can get him, Chief O'Hara.
Subtle. Nice, thank you, Batman.
A moment, Commissioner.
And Bruce gestures for Dick to hand him the Wayne Manor phone,
Chief O'Hara, this is Bruce Wayne.
and then,
Mr. Freeze wants what?
good. And just for the heck of it, Kevin, I want you to do line 25 and then go right to 28, because they're essentially the same line, but they're spoken by Batman and then by Bruce. So I just want you to do those two lines back to back. 25 first,
Yes, Commissioner. Mr. Freeze wants what?
28.
Chief O'Hara, this is Bruce Wayne. Mr. Freeze wants what?
So that might be the way that we might record that so that we can play with the two characters saying that line, exactly the same line, Mr. Freeze wants what. The seal barks again, Kevin, at 28. And barking. Thank you very much. As O'Hara says,
Commissioner Gordon is on the other line phone with Batman, Mr. Wayne. Perhaps if we put the two phones together and you could talk to him yourself.
Bruce says, who am I? So I kind
All
of,
right, Chief.
yeah. I kind of want to use a little bit of the Bruce Wayne voice that we used when we first did the series. So he was slightly
All
foppish.
right, Chief. I don't have much time.
Thank you. And so Chief O'Hara and Commissioner Gordon put the two phones like this, right, side by side, so that he's actually speaking to himself.
This I gotta see.
There you go. So, will it help you if I say who's speaking?
No.
You got it? Go for it. Bruce starts.
Batman? Yes, Mr. Wayne. Have you heard Mr. Freeze's scurrilous demands? Well, just briefly. If Robin and I act as go-betweens, are you prepared to make the telecast at midnight and pay the ransom, Mr. Wayne? Well, I have no choice, Batman. Then may I suggest you take the broadcast from the Commissioner's office an hour earlier, and we will have a dummy package of money. A dummy package of money? That sounds risky. Risk is our business, Mr. Wayne. Oh, of course, Batman. I have the same faith in you that all of Gotham City has. I hope Robin and I are deserving of that faith. I'll make the necessary arrangements and meet you at the Commissioner's office at 11. Fine. Did you get all that, Commissioner?
Indeed I did, Batman. We'll set up the tape telecast and have the dummy package of money waiting. See you at 11 tonight.
And Gordon hangs up both of the phones as he says,
Two fine men. So dissimilar in many respects, and yet so similar in others.
and that's the scene.
Andrea, I think I understand why you retired.
It's exhausting.
You have your work cut out for you. Yes.
So this,
Chris, if we can get the screen up. So we, as you might have guessed, that scene was not an entirely original scene. But we thought you might like to see how the scene plays when it's done by some other actors.
Look at the back computer. Work on that passenger list. Here's the passengers on C deck. All members of a fireplace equipment dealers tour.
Unlikely cohorts of Mr. Freeze.
What about this? Suite A, boat deck. Colin Coldwell.
An appropriate name, but Mr. Coldwell is president of the Coldwell Furnace Company and scarcely a suspect.
Emma Strunk.
What was that?
Emma Strunk, nothing there.
Just a second, Robin. Emma Strunk, I believe, was born Emma Strunk and later changed her name to Glacia Glaze.
Holy ice skates!
Exactly. A world-renowned skating queen. No doubt she booked passage under the name of Emma Strunk in order to avoid publicity. Once on board, of course, she would have been recognized. Yes, old chum, I have a strange feeling.
That Glacia Glaze was Mr. Freeze's accomplice on the Gotham Queen. But what would a talented, beautiful, famous star like Glacia Glaze see in frostbitten Freeze?
The famous Rabelais has already answered that for you, Robin, with his great wit. To each his own, as the woman said when she kissed her cow.
Gosh, Batman, that's sure great wit, all right.
And this could be just the break we and Bruce Wayne are looking for.
Bruce Wayne?
Miss Glaze is opening in a new ice review tonight at the Bruce Wayne Ice Arena. In fact, Mr. Wayne is taking Mrs. Harriet Cooper, a devotee of Miss Glaze's, backstage before the performance to meet the dazzling star.
While Dick Grayson, I suppose, stays home and works on his essay on glaciers.
Right again, Robin.
Bonnie, the next time you send in an unannounced visitor, you'd better send a tank of water and some live fish along with him.
But this was attached to one of its flippers. Suffering icicles. It's a list of demands from Mr. Freeze. He's holding Professor Isaacson for ransom.
At midnight tonight, millionaire Bruce Wayne, head of the Wayne Foundation, is to make a televised broadcast
from this office
that the money's ready to be paid.
He'll only deal directly with Batman and Robin. They're to be ready at midnight, too, to act as intermediaries. Otherwise,
it may be the blackest midnight that Gotham City has ever known, Chief O'Hara. I'll call Batman on the red phone. You get Mr. Wayne on the other.
Right.
Yes, Commissioner. Mr. Freeze wants what?
Hello? I'll see if I can get him, Chief O'Hara.
A moment, Commissioner. Chief O'Hara, this is Bruce Wayne. Mr. Freeze wants what?
Commissioner Gordon is on the other phone with Batman, Mr. Wayne. Perhaps if we put the two phones together, you could talk to him yourself.
All right, Chief. I don't have much time. Batman? Yes, Mr. Wayne. Have you heard Mr. Freeze's scurrilous demands? Just briefly. If Robin and I act as go-betweens, are you prepared to make the telecast at midnight and pay the ransom, Mr. Wayne? I have no choice, Batman. Then may I suggest you tape the broadcast from the commissioner's office an hour earlier, and we will have a dummy package of money. A dummy package of money? That sounds risky. Risk is our business, Mr. Wayne. Of course, Batman, I have the same faith in you that all of Gotham City has. I hope Robin and I are deserving of that faith. I'll make the necessary arrangements and meet you at the commissioner's office at 11. Fine. Did you get all that, Commissioner?
Indeed I did, Batman. We'll set up the tape telecast and have the dummy package of money waiting. See you at 11 tonight. Two fine men, so dissimilar in many respects, and yet so similar in others.
Let's give him another hand for that performance. So, well, to start out, like, all of you have been involved with Batman since the early 90s. So now, Kevin, I know you were the first director hired for the show, so I guess you date back the furthest. What made you want to sign on to the show? You had the demo reel that Bruce Timm and Eric Radomski did.
Yeah, no, it was like, for me, it was just, I saw the demo reel, that I was called up by Bruce. He contacted me because we kind of knew each other from Geek from years before, and they couldn't find anyone that could draw action adventure at that time. It was really difficult, and so they called me up because he knew that I was doing comics and stuff too, and he knew that I had experience directing cartoons, even though, you know, it wasn't what the cartoons were, like Alf Tales. The closest, I guess, was real Ghostbusters. So I went over there, and I was thinking they were going to do like a campy, goofy, you know, Tiny Toons kind of Batman. But when I got there, they showed me this demo reel that you've probably all seen. And like all of you, when you first saw it, I was like, oh my God, just sign me up. Oh, I get a paycheck too. You know, and that's about it. That's me. That was me signing up.
Yeah, and Andrea, I guess you were the next one to sign on. You were already worked with Bruce and Eric, at least tangentially, on Tiny Toons.
Right. I think I lucked into that job because he didn't know any other voice directors.
Yes.
I really think I lucked into it because we had worked together on Tiny Toons. Like, was he a storyboard artist on Tiny Toons?
Yeah, no, yeah. Bruce had never directed or produced anything before.
But it was storyboard on.
He was a board artist.
Yeah.
And Eric was doing backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
And then he was given this opportunity to do this show, which he was very interested in doing. And basically he just said, Andrea, are you interested? I was like, heck yeah. And at the time I had been doing a lot of sillier, goofier, Animaniacs, Freakazoid, Tiny Toons, which are the sillier, more musical. And then for years we joked about Batman making Batman the musical, which we ultimately did have one singing episode for you, which was fun. But it was a nice challenge for me because I hadn't really done much action shows. That was kind of fun.
And can you talk about what went into casting all the actors that we have up here?
It was massive. It was an enormous casting because there's a benefit to it in that I didn't have to call up agents and say, okay, there's this guy, Bruce Wayne, and he's got this vengeance problem, because everybody knows who Bruce Wayne and Batman is. It wasn't that hard a story to break down for agents. The problem was everybody wanted to submit at least 25 actors for the voice of Batman. And I deal with at least 15 agencies. And I think I heard well over, what did I say? I heard well over 500 auditions for the voice of Batman himself. And we auditioned everything. Robin, almost all the main characters were auditioned right up front. Gordon, Harvey Bullock, I think Adrian auditioned. I think we had Catwoman. A bunch of things were auditioned up front. So I think it took me about a month just to listen to all the auditions that were submitted to me. And then I narrowed it down to about 100 people that I brought in to read just for Batman. And at this point, Bruce Timm and I sat in the recording studio and listened to people, and I directed them to see how directable they were and how good they were, and did they have the right idea of how Bruce Wayne might sound different from Batman. And we had about 5 guys that we said they could do it, which is not what you want from Batman casting. You want, this is fabulous, this guy's gonna be so great. And I spoke with my roommate at the time, who was an on-camera an agent, and he said, you should see this guy, Kevin Conroy. He's just got a beautiful voice, he's a Juilliard-trained actor, he's had lots of experience, I think it's worthwhile. And once I found out that Kevin had stage experience, I knew already that he would understand the energy. I find that people who have only ever done film and TV tend to work very small. They don't work very big, because the camera captures a lot, right? But Kevin had stage experience, and would you guys say that's the closest to energy that we use for action?
Absolutely.
It's got slightly
Is that
more
the closest
projection.
you can say to them that I'm a ham?
Yeah, no, just the energy is a little bit bigger. It's not intimate, it's a little bit bigger. And so Kevin came in and auditioned during the callbacks, which was late in the process. And it really was one of those eureka moments when Bruce and I just looked at each other and went, oh my God, we found it. Let's go drink copious amounts of wine. Which I did. But then what was really nice is once we had the voice of Batman set, then it was easy to pick the other voices around it, because you wanted to make sure that people like Harvey Dent You didn't want that voice to sound too Batman-ish against Kevin's Batman. You had to make sure you had nice separation between the characters. But it was an incredible casting. Everybody in town wanted to play.
And Kevin, I understand you originally weren't too interested in playing Batman.
Well, you know, actors always want to do what's challenging, and I think everyone wants to do character roles. And I didn't really see it as something that was going to last more than 6 episodes. I mean, no one knew how long this was going to last, and I thought, well, Bullock's a fun character. I could do a Jersey kind of guy, you know, or you know, Commissioner Gordon or one of the villains. And I was asking them, couldn't I try that? And Andrea was so great. She said, "Don't you understand? You'd be in every episode. It's the lead of the show."
He came around.
We're all glad you came to your senses, Kevin. Loren, what about you? How did you get involved with the show?
Often people ask us, and it's interesting how people don't understand. They think that we choose to do certain things. we put ourselves out there and want to do certain things. Most of us as actors, we get roles, no matter how great or iconic they are, by auditioning. So we all have agents. Andrea put out this casting call. They sent in tapes, and Andrea, you don't know this, but I actually have, you might have this too, the tape of all of us doing our original audition.
Oh, wow. And
my agent sent it to me so I could match the voice for the actual job. But everybody else was on there. So anyway, they would send in cassette tapes in those days, and they would listen, and then they would call people back, and then there would be another call. I think I had 2 callbacks. I had to do it twice, again and again, until I finally got the part. And when I got it, I was thrilled because I was a huge Batman fan from the Adam West, Burt Ward days. But honestly, I felt like, oh, this is like Kevin. This could be a great job for as long as it lasts. And here we are, 27 years later. It's amazing.
But you know what Loren really had going for him too is, I like working with real kids when the opportunity arises, when you have somebody really good. Loren's voice is naturally so youthful and still sounds so youthful, and isn't going to change as far as hiring a kid who's 14 years old and the next year his voice is completely different. Yeah. His voice stays consistent. And when you deal with adult actors, you can give shorthand of notes. You don't have to be quite as descriptive in your notes. You can say, I just need more context there, I need more pre-life, I need more subtext, I need that kind of thing, and they understand what that means. So you had that going. And he still sounds so young. Still sounds
and I am still available.
Now, John, you were telling me the other day that you didn't audition for the Riddler. You just got an offer and you came in and did the role. So could you?
Well, I had my some of my things mixed up. Because I couldn't remember when I first met Andrea, but she.
It was Shiny Pants.
Shiny Pants.
Pinky in the Brain guest star.
Pinky in the Brain. And you. Well, I didn't audition for that either.
No. I just wanted to work with John.
You see?
One of the best parts of my career.
And what made you think of him for the Riddler?
Isn't that good casting? Really, it was just, I always kept a list of people I wanted to work with, people whose work I respected, and this was one of the major job perks is I got to hire people that I admired and then got to know them and become friends with them and direct them and all that. And so it really was for me, looking at that character and how he was drawn. Do you remember how you'd always get a model in advance and see what the character, and I thought, this kind of looks like a physical type that John Glover will sound like, and that's important. You want to make sure that the voice sounds like what the model looks like. And sometimes you deliberately play the opposite. For example, characters like Granny Goodness in Justice League, we had Ed Asner play, female character, but we wanted that was on purpose. This I wanted a voice that sounded like it looked, and I thought John was right on for it. And he was.
And the great thing about it was that I lived right around the corner from where they recorded it, so I could walk to work.
And Diane, you have an interesting story of how you got.
You know what? I've told this story before, but Andrea, I've never heard it from your perspective.
What?
Would you tell us how I got the part? Do you remember?
I don't know that I remember. You
okay,
tell.
well that's okay, then I do. Because it did, after all, happen to me. I was hired to do a couple of different voices on that particular episode, which is called Pretty Poison, and it was the one that introduced Poison Ivy. And I was just doing a secretary or a cop or something like that. And I don't know who it was, but she did not show up, couldn't show, had to cancel. Do you remember who it was that you cast?
I do.
And I've never heard who that was, and may I get her drunk one day and she'll tell me. Okay. And now Kevin knows. Now
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you. It was somebody who was replaced, and it wasn't my choice, and I hate to ever replace an actor, but I will tell you.
Okay. So
it was Meryl Streep. I'm sorry.
Sorry. And she never recovered.
Sorry,
anyway,
Meryl.
so I was there in the studio, and Andrea said, "Would you like to audition for this?" And I went, "Sure," not knowing that she was anybody except for this particular episode. And I looked at the character, looked at the wonderful cell they had, the drawing, and I went, oh, she's very sexy, and I have a cosmetics voice that I always use for all my cosmetics commercials. And then she's Dr. Pamela Isley, which means she's a PhD. So she's intelligent. So the sexy voice with a little bit of intelligence in it. And all of a sudden I thought, yeah, I can do this. I auditioned and they said, you got the part.
Yep.
Serendipity, my dears. Timing.
Now, Kevin Altieri, what was your reaction when you first heard all these voices for these characters, for episodes you were directing?
I mean, Andrea would like send in tapes, you know, and we would just, you know, I mean, it was amazing. Because I mean, I've been working in animation, and every time you'd get a tape of like, who's gonna be this part, and you'd go like, what? Are you kidding me? That guy? Or whatever. On this job, it was like, everyone was like a home run. And it was, I mean, and the weird thing was like originally we had, you know, a different Joker.
Right.
You know, Tim Curry, who I thought, Tim Curry, yes. Then I got to meet him, and he actually recorded one episode, which I actually found a videotape of, by the way. I actually have the print. And he was fantastic, but for whatever reasons he couldn't do it. And it's like, just as an example, we get this tape in, and then Tim comes over and says, hey, listen to this, Andrea just sent this over. And it's like, oh my God, who the hell is that? Luke Skywalker. Like, that's not Luke Skywalker. But no, but every time, every one of these guys was like a home run. It was like I never questioned any of the actors that were chosen, because they were all home runs. And it was really great, because Andrea would actually, I'd get a phone call from her. It's like, oh, this is Rachel Gould. What do you see? And I said, I don't know, Michael York, you know, some British guy, like, you know, Patrick Stewart maybe. And she says, how about David Warner? Yeah. I don't even think he auditioned. I think
I just offered it to him.
Yeah, he was.
I knew he'd be.
It was a home run. Everyone, it's just a home run.
I want to address that question a little bit, if I may, too, John, which was, you know, not that I insisted upon it, but I always prefer ensemble record, which means all the actors are in the room at the same time. Yeah. And there's a practical reason for that, as well as just an artistic reason for it. But the first episode, with the whole cast there, listening to the table read, which is the rehearsal that we do in advance, was, it like made goosebumps on my own skin, and I cast it, and I still was like, this is fantastic. Listen to how those voices sound together. Listen to how these actors are listening to each other. And while during the audition process it might not have occurred to you, I'm guessing during those initial table reads, you knew this was going to be something special. This was not going to be just another Saturday morning cartoon. This was going to be, it was going to sound different, it was going to look different, it was going to be truly dark. In the writing, in the animation, in the voicing, it was a dark, which was way different than anything had been done yet for Batman. And so I thought that was a really cool kind of experience for all of us during the table read of, this is unusual.
And you know, you were alluding earlier to theater actors. We're all theater actors, you know, started that way. So when we were doing the recording, it was like doing a live play.
Yes, right,
you know,
exactly
so.
right.
Yeah.
And Actually, I understand that a lot of you had worked together before. Kevin and John, you two had done a year together.
At the Old Globe.
At the Old Globe.
Oh, wow.
So could you tell us a little about that?
We were brothers once.
We did King Lear, where John was Edgar and I was Edmund.
He was the mean one and I was the good
I
one.
was the bastard son.
And I was the good son.
Yes, and we did Much Ado.
Measure for Measure.
Measure for Measure.
And Country
And you were
Wife.
Benedict and I was Claudio.
Yeah.
I didn't do Country Wife.
You didn't? Wasn't that you?
Well, we did it. No, it was Christopher Tabori. And then we
Where
did.
did you go?
I went back to New York.
Lazy.
I know. And we did a mini-series called The Kennedys.
Oh, I forgot.
Remember
about
that? I was Ted Kennedy.
Yes, and I was Jackie's
friend.
gay friend.
And then we did a wonderful mini-series called George Washington for the bicentennial.
Oh, right.
With Barry Bostwick and
yes, Patty Duke.
Patty Duke, and I was John Lawrence, and you were a British general.
General Lee, because I used to sing 1, 2, 3. I saw Mr. General Lee. We got the record once, and they yelled at us to turn it off. Yeah.
So we've done a lot of shows together throughout the years. It's fun when you cross paths with actors at different times in different roles. But we haven't worked together in a long time. That was all like in the 80s and the 90s.
Yes. A long, long time ago.
Did you know that you two would be working together again, or did you just walk into the studio one day and then see your?
I had no idea.
I had no idea. And then when he started, I thought, oh, there's Kevin. Yeah, what's he doing? And then he started going, whoa, I didn't know he could do that.
And Loren and Diane.
Yeah, we did a couple of cartoon series together.
Defenders of the Earth. Defenders. As you can see from the reaction, it was immensely popular.
How many episodes was it? Like 13, 26, something like that?
No, 65.
65. Oh, yeah. Full 65. Okay.
And also the New Centurions, which I also did, was also 65.
And we did Prince Valiant.
We did Prince Valiant.
What's 65?
Yeah.
65 episodes.
Oh.
That was the standard for syndication.
But we don't get the royalties like we do on Batman. I mean, nobody ever looked at them again, so we don't get any payment. But that's okay, because it's love.
But it was great. It was great when I walked in and saw you there, and it was, wow, old friend, you know.
How did the characters develop for you guys over time? Did your
when you
perception
start a new show, it's interesting. You just have a sketch to work from, an artist's sketch. Because think about it, the voices are done first in the process. So for the first, and then the recordings go off to the artist to be painted. And then the first time you see anything is about 6 months later when it comes back from the artist. They do a process called ADR, where you sync up the visual with the audio. And there's always extra mouth flaps and lines that have been changed and stuff.
And screams.
Yes, lots of screams and grunts. But for the first 6 months of any show, you're really just working from scripts and an initial sketch of the character, because none of the artworks ever come back yet. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're kind of just acting. It was just doing all these little plays together. And wonderful actors coming in. I mean, you got incredible actors in. Because word got out pretty quickly, I think. You told me this.
Yeah.
That these booking sessions were a blast.
Yes, and they were.
And
they were fun.
everyone wanted to be in on them. And at one point, you told me you had no trouble. You could get anyone you wanted.
I really could.
To come in.
Just about.
Because word got around that there was this really fun show being, there's a lot of games being played over on Warner Brothers. Everyone wanted to play. So for the first 6 months of any show, you're really just working from the initial sketch. And you're using your own imagination to create the character. Once you get the artwork back, it kind of feeds you back. It feeds back to you. Once you realize how pumped Batman is, your voice goes down even lower. So it's an interesting process creating the character.
And the voices do evolve. They just do. You can't help it. They begin to listen to each other a little bit more, and suddenly this puzzle begins to fit more closely together. But I want to make a point of what Kevin is speaking about. You don't really know if it's working until you get picture back. You really don't know if it's working, because you may have a wonderful vocal track, but if it doesn't look and sound right together, then you've got to go back and redo. But what was really fun was, while these guys had lots of experience doing ADR, which for this kind of action show requires a lot of fight sounds, throwing punches, throwing a batarang, taking punches, kicking, all that kind of stuff. And Kevin really did not have experience doing that yet. And so I would say, okay, Kevin, we're going to have to do some fight walla and some oohs and ughs. He said, what? And I said, okay, just watch this little sequence. See how you throw a batarang, kick, flip backwards, land on your feet. And all that needs sound. So what? So we would run it once and I would do it from, okay. So you can get all those sounds to match the picture. And if he was off a little bit, we had the ability to move it. So the joke was, as we got into doing this more and more, when we would give levels, which is simply at the beginning of a session, you speak about the level you're going to speak so the engineer can set the microphones appropriately. I would say, okay, Kevin, give me a line of dialogue, and you would say, I am Batman.
I am Batman.
And then I would say, okay, give me a couple of kicks. Throw a batarang. Good. And then we would often have to do what we call keep alive groans, which is when a character gets knocked out, we have to give them a sound so the kids didn't think the character died. So do a couple of keep alive groans. And then I would say, and now say my name. And he would say,
Andrea.
That was my favorite.
And she put together a porno reel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my Andrea.
And then I understand that became a running joke in your recording session.
Everybody would do it. I would get level. They'd say, Diane, give me a level. And she would say, Andrea. So suddenly everybody was saying, Andrea. Those were great sessions.
Loren, can you give us an Andrea?
Oh, Andrea.
John, could you give us an
Andrea?
And then, of course, when it came time to do the movie Mask of the Phantasm, Batman has a love interest. What is she named? Andrea.
and that she was actually named that. Paul Dini wrote that script, and he did that for me. Because there's a scene where Batman is about to lose consciousness, and he calls out, Andrea. He knew how to do that so well, man.
He'd had a lot of practice. And so, what was your reaction when you first saw what the show looked like? What Kevin and all the other animators and directors were doing with the show? But for everybody.
Well, the first time, I remember very vividly because it was in the first ADR session. That's the first time I saw any footage. And it was in a sound stage in Warner Brothers. So it's a full screen, like a film screen. And it wasn't just like a little monitor. And I'm sitting in this sound room, and this full screen comes up, and this whoosh, this sound comes up, and these brilliant colors and this dynamic animation, and I was so shocked. And I looked at who I was in there with, and I said, did you have a clue this is what we were doing? I had no idea it was going to be that beautiful. It was going to be that cinematic, that graphic, that lush. I was
then when we
so
added
proud.
Music later.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Remarkable. Beautiful music.
By the way, ADR means automated dialogue recording. So we have big earphones, and we have to match whatever's up there, and there's little beeps in our ears, and it's a fairly complicated thing at first when you first start out, but then it just becomes something that you do. Just thought I'd explain.
And Kevin Altieri, what was it like on your end? You're directing all these episodes. You're grinding them out because you're working on. You got a storyboard crew. You're battling with the writers with broadcast standards and practices. Can you tell us a little about what that was like?
It's like Andrea said, it's like one of the enjoyable part of doing the cartoon, especially this one, was when you would go to the recording session, and it's like I have a Shakespeare play, or like it's like you're just sitting in the booth and watching these guys, and it's just absolute pure pleasure. And it's like the most entertaining thing you've ever seen. And I'm really sorry that no one here gets to see like these guys like performing the characters live. It was just awesome.
Well, they have now.
Well, they have now. Especially the Seal.
Yeah.
Especially Mark.
Yeah. Especially we're going to give the Seal a spin-off now.
Yeah. To watch Mark Hamill perform in the movie is so much fun.
Mom.
I wish you guys could see it. He's got a Jim Carrey kind of face, you know, where it just becomes the character. He becomes the ooh, Betty. You know? And he's like, it's really kind of scary to be in there with him.
Yeah, no, and it was like watching him and Arlene going back, doing their trading back and forth was like magic. Absolutely magic. And you kind of forget your job because I'm supposed to be listening. I'm supposed to be listening and finding, you know, as you go down, you have specific things that you want to hit. And, you know, and Bruce and I would be sitting there, and Paul, and we'd be just sitting there like this. Oh, wait. And Andrea would go, was that okay for you guys? And we go, what?
Right.
Oh, yeah, no, could we hit unlikely again? I think, you know, it's kind of like that.
It was a joy. The whole thing was a joy.
And that was the voice recording, it was the fun. It was like, that was where the fun happened. And then broadcast standards, you guys have probably heard it from me before, about it was really hard to get that crew together. There were so many people, so many artists who just thought they fit and they did not, and they fell by the wayside. That first episode, so much work went into that first one on Leather Wings, where Bruce, who's the producer of the show, this doesn't happen. He's doing layouts. Like, we had a layout crew. We were like, it looked really Tiny Toons, goofy, weird, like very cartoony. And then we all ended up taking the layouts ourselves. We're not layouters, I'm the director. Maybe I'll do boards. I did boards on the show, but I'm doing layouts. You know, Brad Rader's doing, Dan Reba, we're all people, character designers, we're doing the layouts. It was like we really pounded it through, but we had like this voice track to match. And it's like, oh no, this is not gonna be crap. This is gonna be good. You know, we're gonna make something that people haven't seen for a while, not since the 40s or 50s anyway.
I have a fun fact about that first episode on Leather Wings. The very first line of that episode spoken, which is the very first line of the series spoken, is Kevin Conroy.
What was that?
As a helicopter pilot. So it's Kevin, but it's not him doing Batman yet. It's a helicopter pilot.
Wasn't there a pilot, though, before on Leather Wings? There was a pilot where Tim and Clive Revell...
No? On Leather Wings?
There was a 2-minute promo that Bruce and Eric did.
Yeah, no, that was like a standard thing that they don't really do it so much anymore, but even at like DIC, you know, Deke, and I don't know if Disney did it, but when you wanted to get the job, you would talk to an animation company who wanted to do the job also, and you'd negotiate, and they would give you like 30 seconds of animation for free, or 2 minutes, or 4 minutes at the max. Like we did it with Ghostbusters. Everything at Deke, you would do like a 2 or 3 minute promo, and that would be sent out, and that would sell the shows. And that
I don't
was
think it
what
had
Bruce
dialogue. Did it have dialogue, Kevin?
I don't remember it ever having that. No, it was silent. It was just music.
I think they just used some of the score from the movie. And now, ironically enough, by the time that promo was done, the show had already been sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I got a question for the actors. Did you ever have a moment when you were seeing an episode of the show and you saw some of your quirks or physical mannerisms incorporated into the characters that you were playing?
All the time.
I don't think so for me, no.
Well, what was weird was I wore a mullet in those days.
No, he still has that wig.
No.
Okay.
You know, but the answer to that though is like absolutely. You know, like Diane. You know, like Diane would like that sexy voice. There'd be mannerisms and stuff that you'd give to Poison Ivy. You know, it's like just a little touch, you know, something like that, and she'd raise her hand and do like some hand gesture that you would add to it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, every time.
Because I always act with my whole body.
Yeah.
Well, most of us do.
And by the way, it's like, you know, Robin is the dirtiest fighter. You know, Robin would, like, there's something about his voice and stuff and the joy he would give. Batman would dive into a fight, but he ain't happy about it. Robin dug fighting. And his character got away with the only ball punch ever on Saturday Night.
Snuck that one by.
He'd go into the fish market. It's like, you know, Foley's Fish Market. I don't know what the heck that was. You know, it's like Paul wrote that in the script and these guys are performing it. But Robin goes into the fight and I said, nope, nunchucks, he's got 2 dead fish. And it's like, and he beats the crap out of people. Batman's efficient. He's efficient. He'll take someone out. But Robin, like, enjoys the fight. And that all comes from the voices. It's like that, like the voices that these guys had actually did dictate how the visuals were done.
Well, I'm sure there are some people out there who have some questions. So if there's anybody who has a question, raise your hand. You, sir, in the back?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for Kevin. Out of all the animated films that involved the Batman character that you weren't selected to cast, which one of them would you have liked to voice cast the most?
I have a particular bias for Mask of the Phantasm, just because it tells the entire, first of all, it was the first one we did, the first movie. And also, it tells the entire legacy of Batman. You get the whole genesis of the character. And then there's this wonderfully poignant scene where he's fallen in love for the first time in his life, and he doesn't think he's ever going to be able to fall in love. And he's made this vow to his parents to spend his life avenging their deaths, which requires him to live as a ghost, to live a dual identity. And if he's going to fall in love and have a life, he can't do that anymore, so he's got to break his vow. And he goes to their grave and he begs them, pleads with them to release him from his vow. And it's a very heartfelt scene, and I loved playing it. And just at that moment, whoosh, a flock of bats come screaming out of the earth, like it's his fate pulling him back down. And he knows he can't be released from fate. I love that movie. It's got, and the performances of Stacy Keach and all the actors were just wonderful.
Okay. Yes, sir. You in the back of the picture.
Yes. This is for John. John, what was your experience of working on that movie 52 Pickup with Anne Margaret? Awesome movie, sport.
Yeah, she wouldn't even talk to me when we were off camera. I feared her so much. And I've touched pretty much every part of Anne Margaret there is to touch. And she was really sweet about it.
All right, you sir in the front.
So obviously, you're famous for this like neo-noir Shakespearean show, cartoon, and you, as we've just heard, that the voices kind of evolved with that. Was there a conscious effort? Was there like particular noir films that you would touch upon, either foreign cinema or American movies?
Do you mean for art style?
No, like
vocal style.
So like when you're watching a noir movie, the setting, you believe that character is like this because they live in this particular setting, and because you guys did it, you did the voices and they evolved with the art style. I'm wondering if.
Well, other films do feed your, everything feeds your creative impulse. The two voice idea I got from the Scarlet Pimpernel with Leslie Howard, where he did such two different characters. Where by day he's a fop in the court, and it's during the French Revolution, and at night he's Robin Hood. He's Batman, and he's saving people. And the way he disguises himself is he's a complete fop during the day, so that no one will suspect it's him. And I thought, boy, wouldn't that be cool to do Batman and Bruce Wayne that distinctly different? And for a while, Bruce let me do it. But then when the artwork came back, it was so dark. The show was so dark. I did a lot of my upper register, a lot of sarcasm. I used David Niven as a sort of a mental reference, you know, sort of wry and sophisticated. And it was just too funny. There was a lot of humor in it, but it was too funny with the dark show. So they had me go back, remember, and re-record a lot of the early Bruce Wayne stuff to tone it, just to tone it down a little bit. They still liked the distinction, but they just didn't want it as funny, you know. So yeah, we take references from other stuff. What were you going to say? You were going to say something.
I was just going to say that we all grew up with the gangster films, and of course, those of us who do impressions, those are the first things we were doing. You know, Edward G. Robinson say it, you know, those kinds of voices. So it was so fun, and you know, and you listen to Pinky and the Brain or any of these shows they've pulled out of those shows. So my appreciation for the show is that the dialogue was so well written and was written in that style, that sort of wise, ironic, sarcastic kind of quality that those movies had. It's a very good question that you had.
May I also say that the writing got more complex for all of our characters as time went on.
Yeah.
I think when they saw the range of us as actors, and the writing was really a huge part of why this show was so good. The scripts were amazing.
Yeah.
And all of us were honored to have our characters become more complex, more nuanced, lots of different shades of different, you know, and it was an honor to be speaking the words from these brilliant writers.
I always had the feeling the writers never wrote down to the audience.
No, that's right.
It was never done as a kid's show.
As grown-ups.
It was done as an adult show. I mean, the biggest audience was, I think, college age.
It was, yeah.
But it had to be kid-friendly,
yeah.
you know? So that's why
Levels.
there's so many levels to those shows. You look at them now as an adult, and they're so sophisticated.
All right, we have some more questions. You, sir, right there, third row.
Hi guys, Andrea and Kevin. I'm a big Batman and Beyond fan, so I'm just wondering, Andrea, can you talk about how that show got started, and Kevin, talk about just how the difference between playing Bruce Wayne older and Bruce physically not being able to be Batman.
Hollywood is a really rough town. And once you cross 40, they're like old man roles. You know? When I got that role, I thought, wait a minute, I'm not old enough to play 80.
That's so wrong. Au contraire. When that show came across my desk and I was looking at what we were doing, it made sense to have Kevin keep the continuity. And it would have been lovely to have him play, well, you all know the concept of that show. Bruce Wayne is no longer young enough, healthy enough to keep playing the Batman character. He cannot physically do it. And as I recall, in the one episode where it was a crossover, he pulls out a gun. Batman pulls out a gun, which is so unlike Batman, right? Batman does not kill anybody. Batman does not shoot anybody.
Well, he's in a situation where he feels he has to because he physically can't deal with the villain.
And he shakes.
And he realizes he's got a gun in his hand, and he thought, this is not me.
Right. And so he's I'm not going to be Batman anymore. But of course, we have to keep the Batman character going. So Batman, you know, this young punk kid actually breaks into Wayne Manor. Isn't that how we meet him?
Yep.
And then it becomes this story, which was so great to have Kevin play the older voice. And I knew he could do it. He knew he could do it too. And it had that nice continuity. It just felt right for all of us to have Kevin still playing Bruce Wayne, but teaching this younger kid, a kid who had just gotten out of juvie hall, a kid who had real problems, and I love that sense of that we're teaching a kid, you know, how to stay out of jail, but also how to make things right in the world, so that he was actually fighting crime, but always with Bruce Wayne's assistance. It was really cool. I was proud to work on the show. We're about to do some stuff here on that. They're doing, I think it's the 20th anniversary coming up of that series. Yeah. So I think there's a couple of cons coming up that we'll be promoting and that stuff.
And Loren, I know you aged up your character as well when you went from Robin to Nightwing.
Well, that was the most exciting thing for me in the whole show was Andrea called me up and fooled me. Remember this?
Yes.
She said, because we had finished a season, and another season was coming up, she said, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is you're no longer going to be Robin. Oh. She said, the good news is you're going to be Nightwing. And I was not a comic book reader, so I didn't know what that meant, but I looked into it and I said, oh, I get to be cool now. So I was very thrilled that that character, and I'm the first actor who ever got to voice that, so I was very honored to have that, so thank you.
We're about out of time, but I know most of you are on social media. I thought if everybody wanted to plug their site or tell us what projects you have coming up, let's take a moment to do that.
I am not on any social media.
Andrea is in a blissful retirement right now.
I am Real Kevin Conroy on Twitter and Facebook, and realkevinconroy.com is my website.
The Loren Lester on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm not going to see you guys for a bit. I'm going on tour with the band's Visit, the Tony Award-winning musical. So I'm not going to be doing some Comic-Cons for a long time, so I'm going to miss you all, but I'll be out there. Come see me in any of your cities if the show comes through.
It's a brilliant show, and you should go see it.
It's a great show.
Yeah. Travel miles to see it.
You're next, John.
John, what about you?
Next. I'm the John Glover. On the Instagram, because John Glover was already taken. There's a John Glover who's a serial killer. Did you know that?
Seriously?
I think so.
And he has an Instagram account?
Scary.
I don't want to see those pictures.
These don't go together, I don't think.
He's a very enterprising
in history. I just found that out, though. And I'm real, I think, on Twitter. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm Diane.Pershing on Twitter, and you can send me an email if you'd like to, Diane@DianePershing.com. That's my website. Okay? Cool.
Okay. Hey, Kevin, what are you working on now? Anything you want to plug or can plug at the moment?
I can't plug it, but I'm working on a show for Crunchyroll, and including Batman, it's one of the most violent things I've ever worked on. But I can't talk about it. I've been banned from talking about it. But anyway, you'll dig it. That's all I'll say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time. Kevin Altieri, Diane Pershing, John Glover, Loren Lester, Kevin Conroy, Andrea Romano. Thank you very much.